Ever wonder what it takes to dive into a world filled with, more life forms than you can imagine, and they're all smaller than the eye can see? Well, today we're kind of getting that microscopic lens focused directly on what a career in microbiology really entails. No petri dish required though, thankfully.
Thankfully so. Though we'll certainly touch on lab work, this RoleCatcher guide you've provided is excellent in showing just how diverse the microbiology career path can be.
Right. The first thing that kind of jumped out at me, they're projecting 3% job growth by 2029. Not gonna lie, in the science world, that steady incline is, well, it's pretty reassuring for anyone starting out.
Yeah, it speaks to the field's importance, right? You're not just studying these tiny life forms for the sake of it. This directly impacts medicine, the environment, even what we eat. It's like, it's all connected.
Which is probably why they emphasize that a bachelor's degree is just the beginning. For serious research, they're talking masters, even PhDs. This isn't just a quick course, it's like real commitment.
And they're upfront about the skill set being about more than just science facts. Obviously, knowing your biology is huge. They actually put it at an 85% emphasis.
hmm
But, and here's the kicker, excellent reading comprehension outranks even math skills.
Okay, hold up seriously. So all those years of being a bookworm actually pay off in microbiology.
Absolutely. Think about it. You're constantly poring over research papers, deciphering someone else's findings, and then having to communicate that clearly, whether in writing or when collaborating with a team.
So it's like being a scientific detective and a storyteller all in one. But there's one phrase they use that I gotta ask about: integrate gender dimension in research. What exactly does that mean for a microbiologist?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's reflective of a larger movement in science to ensure research isn't happening in a vacuum. Considerations like who's being studied, are there biases in how experiments are designed, even how findings might disproportionately impact one gender over another. It's about awareness.
That's really interesting. It's like they're saying you have to be a good scientist, but also a thoughtful one, aware of the broader impact of your work.
Precisely. And that awareness, well, it extends to the lab itself. The guide paints a vivid picture. You could be in a state-of-the-art facility one day, then, like, braving the elements for field research the next.
Talk about a career with contrast.
Yeah.
But whether it's a lab coat or a parka, one thing's for sure, they emphasize safety LOT. Remember those hazardous materials warnings from school?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are a microbiologist's daily reality.
Right, right. You're dealing with the potential for things like contamination or even, unknowingly working with a dangerous pathogen. So being meticulous is key. But here's the flip side. Imagine discovering a new treatment or ensuring food security for millions. The potential for good is huge.
Okay, that's what gets me pumped. Knowing your work could have that kind of positive impact on the world is, well, it's pretty inspiring.
It is, and this guide doesn't shy away from the hard work involved. They give a sample interview question that's telling, describe your experience with microbial identification techniques such as PCR and sequencing. They're not messing around with theory. They want to know you can handle the hands-on stuff.
So internships, lab assistant roles while studying, that's not just resume padding, it's proving you can actually do the work.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
speaking of doing the work, we haven't even gotten to the specializations yet. Do you want to analyze diseases, delve into environmental mysteries, or maybe ensure our food is safe and delicious? Microbiology's got it all.
All right, before we get lost in the possibilities of a microscopic career, let's take a quick pause and then we'll dive into those specializations you mentioned, because who knows what fascinating niches we'll uncover. Okay, so we've established that becoming a microbiologist is like more than just a passing fancy with a microscope, right? But now I'm dying to know, what are the actual career paths within this tiny, mighty world? This guide you've got, it breaks it down pretty nicely.
Yeah, it does. It does. And the first specialization they highlight, well, it might make you want to grab some hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
We're talking medical microbiology, the front lines against infectious diseases.
Okay, so these are the scientists dealing with the stuff that makes headlines, right? Viruses, bacteria, parasites, all those microscopic villains we hear about all the time.
You got it. Identifying those pathogens, understanding how they spread, and most importantly, developing treatments and prevention methods. It's a high-stakes field, that's for sure, one that directly impacts global health.
Not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. But, if you're wired to fight the good fight, even at a microscopic level, that's got to be incredibly rewarding work.
Absolutely, yeah. And speaking of a different kind of reward, have you ever, thought about how microbes impact the environment? That's where environmental microbiology comes in.
Okay, I'll admit, when I think microbes, I usually don't picture like pristine forests or sparkling oceans. So tell me more about this environmental angle.
Well, it's fascinating, really, because these scientists are studying how microorganisms affect ecosystems. Think analyzing how microbes break down pollutants, influence soil health, even their role in climate change. It's about the big picture, but on a tiny scale.
So they're like the eco-warriors of microbiology, working behind the scenes to keep our planet healthy.
Exactly. And the work itself can be incredibly varied. One day they might be collecting samples from a remote lake, and the next they're analyzing data to see how pollution is impacting microbial communities in the soil. It's a field for those who love both the lab and the great outdoors.
Sign me up for a field trip. Okay, we've covered fighting diseases and saving the planet. What other, like, essential human needs are impacted by these unseen forces?
Well, I'm guessing you've had something to eat or drink today.
Guilty as charged. What, are you telling me there are microbes involved in my morning coffee, too?
Not quite coffee, but definitely in a lot of the food we consume. Food microbiology is all about ensuring what we eat and drink is, safe and high quality. These are the scientists identifying the microorganisms that cause spoilage, figuring out the best ways to preserve food, and basically making sure what we put in our bodies isn't going to cause a microscopic revolt.
Wow, so they're like the unsung heroes of the food industry. I never really considered all the science that goes on behind the scenes to keep our food safe. That's fascinating.
It is, and it's a field with a lot of potential for innovation, too. Think about the development of new food products, or finding sustainable ways to feed a growing population. Food microbiologists will be key in tackling those challenges.
Okay, so that's medicine, the environment, and food. All incredibly important fields. But what about those driven purely by curiosity, the ones who just want to understand the fundamental truths of these tiny life forms? Where do they fit in?
Ah, you're talking about the heart of it all. Research microbiology. These are the folks constantly pushing the boundaries of what we know about the microbial world.
The explorers of the microscopic universe. What kind of research are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
It can be incredibly diverse, but some key areas are microbial genetics, understanding how those tiny genes are passed down and how they influence a microbe's behavior. Or microbial physiology, basically, figuring out the inner workings of a microbial cell. It's very intricate work, but it has the potential to lead to groundbreaking discoveries that impact all areas of microbiology.
It's like they're building the foundation of knowledge upon which everything else is built. So no matter which specialization speaks to you, one thing's clear: a career in microbiology is about diving deep into a world we're only just beginning to understand.
And the journey from aspiring microbiologist to seasoned pro is one this guide lays out quite well. It's not just about landing a job, it's about navigating the career ladder and continuously growing your expertise.
Okay, so for those ready to take the plunge, what are those first steps, and what can they expect as they gain experience? Let's break down that career trajectory. So it's clear that a microbiology career isn't like a static thing, right? You're not just learning one set of facts and then calling it a day. This guide, it really emphasizes that the field is always evolving.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's something aspiring microbiologists should be, excited about, not intimidated by. Think of it like this: the knowledge you gain in your early years is really just the foundation. And then as technology advances, new discoveries are made, the field expands, and you get to be a part of that ongoing evolution.
So you're not just entering a career, you're joining a community of explorers who are constantly like pushing the boundaries of what we know. I love that. But what does that actually look like in terms of, career progression? This guide lays out a pretty clear trajectory.
It does. And it's not surprising that those entry-level roles, like junior microbiologist positions, are all about hands-on experience. You're working alongside more seasoned scientists, running tests, analyzing data, and really getting a feel for the day-to-day realities of lab work.
Paying your dues, soaking it all in, making mistakes and learning from them. Those early years are so vital for building a strong foundation.
Couldn't agree more. And from there, the guide talks about how those junior roles often progress into senior microbiologist positions. At that level, you're taking on more responsibility, maybe even leading research projects, mentoring junior staff, and really honing your expertise in a particular niche.
It's like climbing the ranks of the microscopic world. But for those with a real drive to, shape the field, those leadership roles are within reach, right?
They are. The guide even mentions positions like principal microbiologist, where you're overseeing entire research departments, making strategic decisions, maybe even collaborating with other institutions or organizations.
Wow, from analyzing petri dishes to steering the ship of scientific exploration, that's an incredible journey. But let's be real, it's a competitive world out there. What can aspiring microbiologists do to really stand out from the crowd and prove they've got the microscopic mojo?
That's where the guide's emphasis on continuous learning really comes into play. It's not enough to just rely on what you learn in school, right? The field is constantly evolving, and the most successful microbiologists are the ones who are always seeking out opportunities to expand their skill set.
So we're talking about going above and beyond, right? Like attending those conferences, presenting research, maybe even publishing in scientific journals.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of networking. Joining professional organizations, connecting with other microbiologists online, even just having conversations with colleagues at conferences. These are all ways to learn from others, share your own knowledge, and potentially even open doors to new opportunities.
So it's about being a sponge, constantly absorbing new information, but also about sharing what you know and being part of that larger conversation.
Precisely. And that brings us to something that often trips people up the interview process. Because even with the best qualifications, you have to be able to articulate your passion, knowledge, and experience to potential employers.
It's showtime. And this guide doesn't disappoint. They've got a whole section dedicated to interview prep, including some real-deal questions you might encounter.
One that I found particularly interesting was, describe a time when your attention to detail was crucial in the lab. It's not a technical question, but it gets at something really important in this field, the ability to be, meticulous, observant, and precise.
It's those seemingly small things, like catching a tiny error in a data set, noticing a subtle change in a culture, that can make a huge difference in research outcomes.
Exactly. And that attention to detail, combined with a strong work ethic, a genuine passion for microbiology, and that constant drive to learn and grow, that's the recipe for a successful and fulfilling career in this field.
So to wrap things up for our listeners, it seems like diving into the world of microbiology is about more than just studying tiny life forms, right? It's about embracing a career path that's constantly evolving, about asking big questions and solving complex problems, and about being part of a community that's working to understand one of the most fundamental aspects of our world.
Beautifully said. And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the next great microbiologist making groundbreaking discoveries that shape the future of medicine, the environment, or even our understanding of life itself.
Now, wouldn't that be something? All right, folks, that's it for today's deep dive into the fascinating world of microbiology careers. We hope you've enjoyed this microscopic journey, and remember, sometimes the smallest things can have the biggest impact.